on living a life true to yourself. Now, this may be one of the most challenging and hard tasks that a human can go through, because it is a pursuit that is so often unnoticed. There is a lot of quiet hardships, a lot of lonely times, and a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of worry that one has to learn to grapple with. You must also overcome the resistance and learn which voice to listen to. Come to figure out which one is the still small voice that is trying to guide you down a path that is true to yourself, that is full of meaning, that is full of love and light, and the voice that is the ego and gives you resistance, telling you to settle, telling you that you're not good enough, that you have no business trying to do the things that you dream of. You must learn which one is which and which one to listen to, because it is not easy. And the still small voice is not the path of comfort, the path of certainty, the path of no risk. It is the path of uncertainty, of difficulty, of growing pains, of uncertainty. And it can be so challenging to walk, especially when you let worry and the advice of other people get the best of you. Now, I think everyone means well in giving advice and giving their 2 cents into things that they believe they have knowledge about that they can share. But whenever we receive advice from somebody, we truly have to ask ourselves, do I want the life that this person has? Do I want to have the journey that this person has had? And do I want to end up where they are? Because if the answer is no, and it so often is, then yeah, I think we need to take this advice with a grain of salt. It could be good advice. Just because they're not where you are doesn't mean the advice isn't good. It doesn't mean you should dogmatically not follow it. But so often people hold you to their limitations and give you advice that they think they need, or that they think they had to have followed. And so often people don't take the risk of, listening to the still small voice of, following their passions, their dreams, doing the thing that's uncomfortable, that's hard, that takes time, that takes energy, and a lot of growth that is not seen, and not even seen by the outside world, but not seen by you. There's I think it's a type of bamboo that grows, and I think it takes like 55 years to mature to full length. But it only gets, like a foot or so in, I think, like 50 years. And in that 50 years, it is growing strong roots. It is growing underground. No one can see what this thing is doing. They just see a piece of bamboo that's only grown a foot in 50 years. But then in 5 years, it sprouts and it grows to 50 feet and, grows 10 feet every year. And the moral of that story is that, that piece of bamboo didn't grow 55 feet in 5 years. I mean, it did, but without the 50 years of growing beneath the surface, it could not have handled such growth. It would have fallen under its own weight. It would not have been able to sustain the growth that was to come. And that can be so often what is happening when we're following the still small voice, and when we're living a life true to ourselves. There can be a lot of internal growth, and there can be a lot of growth under the surface, and there can be a lot of things that are happening that are leading you to that one chance event that changes everything. And it's like that picture of the miner who, he's mining and he turns around one axe hit before he gets to the diamonds. And that's how walking a path true to yourself can feel at times. But you just can't give up, because you don't want to stop one axe hit away and then just have bitterness with you the rest of your life that it never worked out, and then telling everybody else how their pursuits are foolish, setting your own limitations to them, and then acting like they can't do it because you couldn't do it. The main point I want to make here, though, is that when you walk a path true to yourself, when you live a life in accordance with your nature, it isn't easy. You basically, I believe, you front load a lot of discomfort. You front load all the discomfort that you see older people go through. They, played it safe and, partied and had fun in their youth and did this and that, told the internal voice to stop talking. And I think that is what a midlife crisis is. It is when you realize it is now too late to listen to the still small voice, but you come to realize that you just should have, because now you feel all that pain. It's like they say, hard life, easy choices. Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. And it's so true. And I think that's just what a midlife crisis is. And I think we can either choose to go through midlife crises at a young age, or we can choose to go through them at midlife. And it's better to go through it at a young age, because then you have so much more of your life that is true to yourself, that is meaningful, that you can look back on with deep gratitude and fulfillment and honor that you took the risk. Now, I think a lot of us forget, when we play it safe and we don't walk a path true to ourselves, we forget that the destination is the same. The destination of the path walked true and the path walked false is both death. At the end of the day, we all die. And at the end of the day, we all have to live with the decisions that we've made. And I think about death a lot. And to me, it helps me live truer to myself, because it reminds me that, I could play it safe, but at the end of the day, I'm still gonna die. And still, it's not like death in old age is guaranteed. We act as if, 60, 70, 80 is a number that is guaranteed. And it is not. You may live your whole life sacrificing day in and day out for some future that will never come. One wrong turn can make 40 years at a job you hated just a waste of time. And to think that it's worth, giving the worst years of our life over to what we believe is the best thing is foolish. It's truly foolish. We think, 60, 70, 80 is when we'll, live the wellest. But why would you want to save your best years? Or why would you want to save what's supposed to be your best years for your worst years? For your physical decline, for your mental decline, for your just decline in everything. Now, the still small voice, the path walked true to oneself is different for everybody. And that's why I believe you need to spend a lot of time tuning into that voice and not allowing me or anyone else to tell you. Because maybe the still small voice tells you to work that job, to, pursue, keep doing what you're doing and trust. And maybe that is your path. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that path, but I think it's clear that a lot of people do think there's something wrong with that path. And I think nothing is more evident than that, than the people who, count the days to retirement. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. People have made sacrifices for family and things, and they work jobs because, more or less they had to. But what else is counting the days to retirement than saying that you dislike your job that you've been doing for 40 years? I used to, and one more thing. I don't think retirement is good. I don't think we should want to retire. I'm not working right now, but I want to work the rest of my life. I just want to work at something that I enjoy, something that gives me meaning, and something that I feel provides benefit to the world. I don't want to retire at, 60 to just sit around and, watch TV till I'm 80 or 90 or 100, or just do selfish pursuits. That is not worth it. And even though my pursuits, I'm trying to make videos, which I don't think is selfish, but I think to some people my pursuits may seem selfish, quitting and traveling the world, but it's all in service to hopefully figuring out how I can be in service to the world for as long as possible, because that's what I believe matters. And I always, the old job I used to work at, I used to, there'd be a lot of people who, had their calendar out and they had the retirement date circled, and, they were like 5 years away, and, they'd be counting the days, counting the months. And I always, I was like, yeah, this job sucks. That makes sense. I don't blame you. But then, first, there was always the people who could have retired, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And with how my job was, you would have, a pension at that point. And, guys would talk amongst themselves, and you'd crunch the numbers, and you'd be like, Joe's coming to work for like $100 a month. Because if he just retired, with how much his pension is, how much he would get from his TSP or, 401k, he would be getting basically the same amount of money he gets to come into work for 40 hours every week, 160 hours a month, and, 1,400 hours a year. And I thought that was crazy. It's like, because I didn't like my job. So I was like, how is $100 worth it for the drive, for the traffic, for everything? But then as I grew, I came to respect those people far more than the people that retired the first day they were able to retire, because they actually enjoyed it. They actually understood that retirement just meant sitting around doing nothing. It didn't mean, it didn't mean anything special. It meant just wasting away and decaying until you died. So I came to respect those people a lot who didn't retire the day they were supposed to retire, and actually ended up working years beyond the retirement date. And when you would ask them when they were going to retire, some would say, oh, next winter would come, they wouldn't be retired. The next winter would come, they wouldn't be retired. And then other ones, they'd just be like, I don't know. They wouldn't even be thinking about retirement. They'd just be living in the present, going day by day. And I came to really respect those people. And I came to notice that they were the happiest. They were the ones who I enjoyed talking to the most. They were the ones who were the most positive, who were the smartest, who, even in old age, had more energy than the people half their age, and had more knowledge and more wisdom. And I came to realize that was because they were wise, and they understood that just because that wasn't my path, that doesn't mean it wasn't someone else's path. That doesn't mean that they didn't enjoy it. It doesn't mean that they wanted to retire the day the date came. And as I said many a times, I came to respect those people, because to me, that was a sign that, maybe they did live a life true to themselves, because they didn't have the retirement date circled on their calendar, ready to leave, ready to admit that the job they worked 40 years was something that they hated. They were okay with saying that, I don't mind this. But I digress. The point is, walking a path true to yourself is not easy. The point is, there's uncertainty. There's times where you're going to think, I should have settled. There's times where you're going to worry. But I think it's very beneficial to remember and realize that worrying isn't, a bug of life. It's a feature of life. And it's something that you need to learn how to deal with, because your worries will never go away. But you can develop skills and ways to deal with your worrying to where you no longer worry, even though you are worrying. Because you understand that, just because this one worry gets taken care of doesn't mean another worry doesn't take its place. And it could be the exact opposite of the worry you had. You could worry you have not enough money. And then you win the lottery, and then you worry you have too much money, that people come after you and you'll spend it unwisely, and this, that, and the other. So often the worries we think are corrupting our life, we obtain the opposite, and we just have the opposite worry. Worries are not something that just go away. They're something that stick with us. But there's something that you can learn how to deal with, and learn how to wisely interpret them in such a way to realize that worrying about this worry does me no good, so I will not worry. And that doesn't mean it's still not a worry. It's kind of a paradox, but as I've said, all the great truths are paradoxes, so that's how you know it's true. But just ask yourself, be honest with yourself. Don't seek comfort. The still small voice will not give it to you. But living a life true to yourself is just front loading discomfort and allowing your life to be more rich and beautiful, and allows you to die honorably, knowing that you lived and helped as much as you could.